Hello and welcome to Manchester United, the D in its view. This is my first United pod for probably a week now, or a week and a half. I obviously missed the Europa League game when we versed PAOK and won 2-0, thanks to a brace from Amad Diallo, who looks like he has regained the confidence and step in his performances that we saw at the beginning of the season. So it's fantastic to see him back into a run of form. Particularly now that, there's going to be a change in the coaching arrangements. Hopefully we do see him kick on. I will touch base on that game a little bit more. So I didn't watch that one because I was on holiday in Singapore for my partner's 30th, who she had a great time. Unfortunately, I also got sick while I'm there, and I'm still getting over it. And I've gone straight into school camp, which is not ideal at all. But here we are, which is why the video quality and the audio quality might be a little bit different because I'm recording directly off my laptop, which is obviously nowhere near as good as my setup at home. But I figured I've got a bit of time here. I'm going to try and do a little bit of a mini update before I do a proper one when I get home this weekend. So look, that one happened. I actually did catch the Leicester performance. Somehow, I don't even know how I convinced her, but on her actual birthday, we'd gone to a all-in brunch at the top of the Chevette, which is like a massive boat-looking thing across like 3 massive skyscrapers, 57 floors up. It's actually 1,354 meters up in the air. And we got a little bit drunk and then went out and then went to the raffles for like the Singapore Sling. And then I was like, well, just try my luck, see if I can convince her to go down to the Irish pub, which was about 50 meters from the hotel, thinking, Irish pub, Irish, they love Man United, surely they'll have the Sunday the game on. And sure enough, what did they have on? Manchester United versus Leicester. So I actually had 3 pints while I was watching the game, got a little bit merry. There was a few Bruno fans in the building as well, so I started into the rendition of the Bruno. He's from Sporting like Cristiano. He goes left, he goes right. He makes defenders look shy. He's our Portuguese Magnifico. Oh, wow, I almost lost my train of thought there on that last little bit. That got sung out quite a few times. It was great to see the captain back in form. And another clean sheet. That's 2 clean sheets in a week. And Ruud van Nistelrooy, unfortunately, had a fantastic stint as caretaker manager. He has conducted himself with nothing other than dignity and respect for the club that he's a massive fan of. He was a club legend here when he played, and we'll talk about that in a second. And he's done everything that's been asked of him since Ten Hag was efficiently sacked by Ineos. And now, unfortunately, which is kind of be expected considering he did so well, it would be a bit of and we'll talk about the pros and cons for getting rid of him now. But it makes sense as to why this decision has been happening, obviously because of the fact that Ruben Amorim, who has entered the building and was pictured yesterday arriving in Carrington and was greeted by Omar Barada, and then before meeting with Dan Ashworth and Jason Wilcox and probably the rest of the players that aren't on international duty. He was there yesterday, and look, it's now the Amorim now. It's a completely fresh start under a completely new football leadership that was put in over the course of the summer, and now we see if they can get it right. I mean, the jury's out on whether Ineos can get it right because obviously they've been at Nice for quite a few years and they haven't got it right, and they've sacked a lot of managers. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens there. But hopefully, with some luck, this is the beginning of something special. I mean, Ruben Amorim has not lost a game this season. Sporting Lisbon, the top of the league. He leaves on top of the league. They spanked Manchester City in the Champions League last week, 4-1 after going 1 goal behind in his final game as head coach for Sporting Lisbon at their home ground. I mean, that's insane. If there's a way to announce yourself, and obviously the English press is going to be like, they've been all over it, and he's been quizzed a bunch of times, and he seems to be handling the press super well. And he seems to be quite, on first impressions, quite personable. Something Ten Hag definitely wasn't with the English press, and I think that probably counted against him in the end. I mean, that Ten Hag's, some of his flaws were he got quite lost in translation, I think, and he kept on banging on about the same things: the trophies, the injuries, the plan, and the process. I mean, I don't know how many times, if you paid me £1 or $1 for every time that he mentioned those 3 things, I think I could probably retire. couple of years earlier than what I probably will need to moving into the future. So, look, that's something to keep in mind there. But look, Ruben van Nistelrooy, I love him because he looks like me. When I go to the Bishop's Blaze in Manchester for games, people sit there and look at me, when they see a lookalike in the pub and they chant their song. So when people sit there and look at me, they chant the Ruben van Nistelrooy song. It's a bit like one of the other blokes that I go with. He's from Norway. Shout out to him. He looks a lot like Steve Bruce, and he also gets the Steve Bruce chant. It's brilliant. And I didn't just love him because of that. I'm a striker at heart, and I love playing football. And when I was in high school, I think that maybe year 9 and 10, like in the early 2000s, when Ruben van Nistelrooy was bought by Manchester United. And I remember just watching David Beckham putting balls in on the right on a silver platter and Ruben van Nistelrooy just gobbling them up and putting them away. This dude was, to date, the best centre forward in terms of goal scoring ability inside the box that I've ever seen play for anyone, let alone Manchester United. So there's a reason why I love him. I used to just sit there. When a ball would just fall to him, you'd be like, this is going to be a goal. And it would be a goal. I mean, I remember that run where he went on like 10, 11 games in a row and just scored in every one of them. He was just ultra consistent. He was the fox in the box. You knew when the ball landed at his feet, he was 100% likely to probably put it away. And, it's hard to see him go, and he's done such a great job. He's held himself with respect throughout this whole process. He's looked after the club. He's looked after himself. And I think it's a nice parting of the ways. I'm just going to quickly read out the statement that the club released yesterday when they talked about him leaving and the other coaches of Ten Hag staff that have left as well. So Manchester United can confirm that Ruben van Nistelrooy has left the club. Ruud rejoined in the summer and has taken charge of the team for the past 4 matches as interim head coach. Ruud is and always will be a Manchester United legend. We are grateful for his contribution and the way in which he has approached his role throughout his time with the club. He will always be very welcome at Old Trafford. Rene Hake, Jelly Jen Ten Rulova and Peter Morrill, who I've probably said their names horribly wrong, have also departed, and we wish them all well for the future. We will confirm the full men's first team coaching composition in due course. That's because Ruben Amorim is probably bringing all of the staff members that he had with him at Sporting Lisbon, which is probably a good thing, to try and implement his philosophy in the way that he wants to play. And we probably are going to see a change in formation. We probably are going to see a 3-4-3. And we saw what it looked like a bit like it at Man City. So they obviously seeded and played on the counter-attack, and it probably looked more like a 3-5-1 than a 3-4-3. But I think that against the bigger teams potentially this season, that is potentially what we might see from Amorim, while he embeds his style of play. But I think moving forward, we can probably potentially see a bit more of a 3-4-3. How are we going to line up in that when we've pretty much been buying for a team that's 4-4-2 or 4... No, that's not the word I'm looking for. 4-3-2-1 or whatever you want to call it is another story for another day. But yeah, at this particular time, you would expect him to play something fairly similar to what he has been doing. And he's consistently played 3 throughout his pretty much entire time as a head coach. So it's going to be something different and something I'm definitely on board with. And starting from yesterday, the Amorim era is here. Ruben van Nistelrooy had a great little run, 4 games in a row. I loved every one of those games. It just felt good. Watching him on the sidelines, that man is a manager. He's just, unfortunately, whatever you want to call it, he's not going to be the Manchester United official manager or head coach moving forward. But there's no reason to doubt that he could be a great manager or head coach moving into the future. And I do believe that Ruben van Nistelrooy is destined for good things. I wouldn't like to see him go to a relegation-threatened team. However, I think his level at least, obviously he's managed PSV in the Eredivisie, but you'd expect him. I actually think that if West Ham sacked their manager, that both him and Ten Hag could potentially be in the offing there. I mean, Borussia Dortmund, they're not doing too well at the moment either. I mean, these are the clubs you would like to see him at, like clubs with a bit more, oomph to them that he could probably take on to maybe challenge into getting into Europe in one of these bigger leagues, and then he'd be able to put himself in the frame for a big job at one of the big clubs in the world. So that's just my personal opinion. I think he looks like a great manager and rating. He definitely seems to have the man management and the ability to relate with players, which I think is fantastic. He can obviously speak multiple languages as well, which is something that obviously Ten Hag struggled with in terms of getting his message across to the players in this squad. I mean, it's interesting to note that pretty much Ruben Amorim has changed very, very little of the team, except he's just played the players where they probably should be playing, and they've played and performed much better. It's like they just seem to know what the plan is. He's like, has always dumbed it back. He didn't overcomplicate things, and the goals came. I mean, the goals were always going to come. There's no way that team should be underperforming the XG that they have been to start this season. And Bruno Fernandes, chief and point. And I think the main thing here, when you look at Ruben Amorim identified, like most other people, Bruno Fernandes has an unbelievable record since joining Manchester United, and that is playing as the number 10, higher up the pitch, not having to come back and do this defensive stuff or move into the midfield, which is why his position under Amorim is going to be so interesting to watch how it develops, how he uses Bruno, how he deploys him, because Ruben Amorim obviously identified that, and he played him further forward, and he's got 4 goals in 4 games. The proof's in the pudding. The dude is back on the score sheet. He's doing well. He's getting assists. He had 17 FPL points on the weekend in the game at home against Leicester. He was a great one-week punt, and I should have done it myself. I obviously play FPL. If you want to check out FPL, please check out my other videos. And it's also a good time to mention, if you haven't already and you're new, please press the subscribe button and please like the video. Help me share this with your friends. I am an interesting take on most things. I try to be as calm and concise as I can be, particularly when I'm talking about Manchester United. But sometimes I do get a bit carried away. I was definitely carried away towards the end of the Ten Hag era. I was definitely in the boat of he needs to go. And I'm still very firmly of the fact that they probably wasted 10 games of the season doing it. They should have done it at the end of the FA Cup. Yes, thank you for the win and the trophy. See you later. But we'll see. Lenny Yoro is back on the training pitch. Luke Shaw apparently is rumoured to be getting very close to full fitness as well. Lassie is obviously training. Mason Mount's probably, hovering around as well. I think he actually came on in one of the games. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure I saw him come on. We'll have to double check that. I was slightly drunk when I was watching the Leicester game. So you have to forgive me if that is a little bit out of kilter. I've also been a little bit sick as well. The whole last week has been a bit of a whirlwind. But look, moving forward, I think there's great things to look here. United actually go into an international break in good form. It's definitely safe to say there's definitely been an uptick. I know we haven't versed the best teams at all, and obviously, Chelsea's a decent team. They're equal third with Arsenal, so they're not going to be laughed at, and that was a credible draw. I think Amorim gets a good couple of games here when he comes back. He's got Ipswich away, followed by an easy fixture at home. Again, I think these games need to be targeted. They need to be won. Everton at home, sorry. They need to be won, and then he goes to Arsenal in the league. So hopefully he can win the first 2. That'll build the confidence. Hopefully get his game plan a little bit into what he wants to do, see how players are going to react and things like that. And hopefully he can go to Arsenal and give them a game, if not like Dawn, because Arsenal have not been in the best form this season, and there's no reason to think that we can't go there and provide some sort of an upset, particularly as I think that they are there to be had at the moment. So, look, what is there to do for Amorim? So when he comes in, first thing he probably needs to sort out is which defenders are going to play in which positions. So it's obvious that De Ligt is a centre-back, and you would think that Lisandro Martinez would be definitely on the left-hand side of that back 3. Or Luke Shaw maybe, because of the fact that his body is so fragile, he is the one that plays in the left-hand side of the back 3. Martinez could then play in the middle, and De Ligt could play on the right. But then you've also got Lenny Yoro, and you could think that Lenny Yoro is a lock, absolute lock for one of those 3. And it would make sense to play him on the right, I would think. I'm assuming that's where he was brought for originally in the summer, to play on the right-hand side of the centre-back. So I think that he would fit there. But then you've got the quandary of the four, and there's no real natural wing backs in the squad. There's qualities that Dalot and Mazraoui both possess. Whether they're good enough to play the role is going to be interesting, because the way Amorim's team at Sporting in particular has played, they've played with one more defence-minded wing back and one more attack-minded. So that makes you think that one of the defenders, and I would say it's probably the right-hand side. I can't see Dalot or Mazraoui playing as the right centre-back in the three. I just can't see it myself. So I think it's one of them will play, and the other one might be missing out. Or the other one might start on the left to begin with. I'm not sure. But I think potentially that Amad or Garnacho will be turned into the attacking wing-back, which would make sense to me. One of them is obviously going to be way more attacking. Now, I think that Amad probably has the better discipline, the harder work rate. And I think that potentially that's what I would, I don't know, it's not about what I would do, but for logically speaking, I think that's probably where he will look to first. And then obviously you've got Rasmus Højlund. I think suits a much better spot than Joshua Zirkzee. I actually don't know how Joshua Zirkzee fits in at all. He just seems slow, as I've been saying all season. From my perspective, I'm unsure why we signed him. Unless it was because he was Dutch and he had some sort of link to Ten Hag, because it just makes no sense to me. He just does not seem suited for Manchester United. It'll be interesting to see what happens when Amorim comes in. But I would imagine that Rasmus Højlund, he possesses a lot of qualities that Gyökeres does. I don't even know how you say his name, but the bloke that currently plays for Sporting and has scored a boatload of goals since leaving Coventry and Swansea for the Portuguese Liga. So that's something to keep in mind, that Rasmus Højlund does have a very similar profile, and he is obviously a couple of years younger, and hopefully he can be relied on in order to, get the ball rolling, and hopefully he can start scoring as many goals as the bloke does for the Sweden national team and Sporting Lisbon, because then we're on to something. And then we get on to the Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford and the Garnacho and Amad debate. So generally speaking, he plays in a 3-4-3, but it's more a 3-4-2-1 with two sort of intricate forwards in behind, like Rasmus Højlund. Now, Marcus Rashford actually looks well suited to this role, and hopefully Amorim can provide him with the confidence and the discipline and the positional sense in order to thrive. And hopefully we see a return to the Marcus Rashford that we know is in there and probably just needs to be unlocked. Hopefully that is what we get. Whether we get it or not, it's going to be another course of debate, but then that's probably going to determine what happens in the summer. Now, I would like to see the GOAT. Amad also looks like he could be potentially playing that role. But the one that really does come across is Bruno Fernandes. Now, he is too good to be playing deeper in like the four. I think he has to be in one of those two players, which then means that it's between Amad, even Amad and Garnacho get turned into wing backs, or one of them's fighting with Marcus Rashford for the other spot in behind Rasmus Højlund. Otherwise, one of them must be fighting for Rasmus Højlund's spot. So I'm not sure how that's going to work, but you'll think that Bruno Fernandes is going to start. And I just can't see him starting in the midfield. I could definitely see him starting a bit higher up. And judging from what we saw under Ruben van Nistelrooy, the higher up you play Bruno Fernandes, the more chance there is that he scores goals and he creates goals. Yes, he gives the ball away a fair bit, but when he's doing the other two things, and you've got the system behind him that will look after him making those, losing the ball, then you're going to be sweet, and he is going to do more good for your team than bad. That's personally what I believe. Now, obviously, Ugarte played at Sporting Lisbon under Ruben Amorim, so he is well versed in what a Ruben Amorim system is, and you would think that potentially there might have been some forward planning in the summer that they were interested in Ruben Amorim, which is maybe why they made such a big play for Manuel Ugarte, because he definitely didn't look like someone that Ten Hag overly trusted or felt fitted into his system. But under Amorim, I think we'll see Manuel Ugarte start almost every game, and I think we're likely to see him do really well. Now, the question is, who is he going to start alongside him? So at the moment, there's obviously Kobbie Mainoo, who's injured, but it apparently should be back fairly soon. There's obviously Casemiro, that Ruben Amorim was playing with him, and they actually seem to dovetail quite nicely in the 4 games they pretty much played together under Ruben Amorim. So I think there's obviously experience there, but you'll think long term that that's likely to be Manuel Ugarte and Kobbie Mainoo, provided that they are both fit and available. I think you'll see them both start together, and I think that probably makes the most sense there. And then, yeah, the major thing is the other positions, how they're going to quite fit. Obviously, we've got quite a big squad as well. And we've got a lot of players that aren't probably the round pegs for the round holes. They're more like square pegs that we're probably going to try and put into round holes to begin with. And then Amorim's going to have this season probably to try and get his style of play across, so we can see that. I think actually there's no judgment that happens this season. I know he comes in and the season is still salvageable, but we're starting from a really low point. And yes, Ruben Amorim has turned it around. And I think that he's just going to the season to implement his style of football. And that's all we really want to be seeing this season. It's a style of football and us trending in the right direction. We should definitely not be finishing below 10th. This squad is far too talented to finish below 10th. And I don't believe that Amorim will get us finishing below 10th. I think we'll see quite a good upturn in results. And a top 4 challenge is definitely not out of the question. If you're someone that's sitting there going, you're talking absolute nonsense, let us know in the comments what you think. But that's personally my belief. Now, there's some players I think that are going to be jettisoned quite quickly and quite early. I wouldn't be surprised if Anthony was the first one out the door, because he has been costing us money ever since he got here. And now that Ten Hag's gone, who brought him in, I can't see any way back for him. I mean, Amorim might make him an absolute world beater, but I just can't see it at the moment. And I think he might be one of the first few out the door. Other players that are obviously coming towards the end of their contract, Victor Lindelof, for example, I would think that Luke Shaw's probably in the firing line here as well. Other players like Mason Mount probably need to get themselves fit, because otherwise they're probably going to find themselves out of the manager's ideas, out of the manager's thoughts, and they're going to be finding themselves probably leaving the club fairly quickly. So look, that's where we're at. It's going to be interesting 2 weeks. Obviously, a lot of the players are off on international duty, while others are back at Carrington. So we're going to have to wait and see. Amorim's going to get his feet under the desk. Thankfully, he starts 2 easy fixtures. We'll preview them a little bit more. I will cover the international matches in a pod early, probably on the weekend or early next week. And then I'll do one previewing the Ipswich game away from home, and Amorim's obviously first in charge, and I'll cover any other relevant news that comes out in between now and then. But it is rumoured that all his coaching staff from Sporting Lisbon are going to be joining. He is at the club. We are waiting for official commencement of duties, because obviously the work visa still hasn't been technically quite ticked off, I don't think, but they don't imagine any problems. And then he'll be able to take over full responsibility for all the training and all those things to do with the players and the style of play at Carrington moving forward. So, with that being said, that is all for me today. I will join you later on, so please make sure you do like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. That's been Manchester United, the D Unit's View.